Hi YouTubers! Yes, here in Britain the excitement's mounting, the money's being spent, and indeed in just a day or so we are to be blessed here in Britain. We are to be blessed by a visit from our dear old friend Pope Benedict XVI. This particular event is a state visit, the first ever state visit by a pope, believe it or not. We did have a visit before in the 80s by the last one, but that was some sort of papal visit. It wasn't a state visit. A state visit basically means that we in Britain get to pay for it, or at least most of it. The estimate so far is around about £14.5 million. Some of that being on the events and some of that being on the security, which translates basically to about 20 million. I know the sums don't add up, but these are government figures we're talking about, so I'm a bit sceptical about that. However, in a recent survey, okay, it's a survey. Surveys can be made up to tell you all sorts of things, statistics as usual. But this I found quite an interesting survey, and I'm going to share it with you. It's a survey done by the Times newspaper, posh one, not the Sun, or the Daily Star. Can you imagine a survey by them? Anyway, the Times newspaper survey, and in it says only 14% of Britons are in favour of Pope Benedict XVI's visit to Britain this week. Didn't say the but I added that in for just for impact. Anyway, more than 2/3 say they're unhappy with the visit, either because of the cost or because of the views held by the head of the Roman Catholic Church. I'm obviously reading this, it's just behind you over there, so you know, if I sound like a newsreader. Right, this was a poll of 1,508 adults by the Populus Institute. I've not actually heard of them, but I'm sure they're very famous. The poll carried out between September the 10th and 12th found that only 14% of people agreed they were positively in favour of this visit, and we should not quibble about the inevitable costs. Okay, 57% said they didn't feel strongly either way about the visit, which doesn't surprise me really. Hang on, I've got to move it up a bit, I can't see now, it's gone down there. Here's an interesting bit. 11% of those surveyed say they were opposed to the Pope coming to Britain because of his track record and the views he espouses. Espouses, I love that word, I'll use it again. The survey found that 73% of people thought that the Pope should drop the outright opposition to abortion. 79% said he should drop his opposition to contraception. 70% his opposition to homosexuality, and 72% the ordination of women priests. That's interesting actually. The one that gets the lowest votes is the homosexuality thing. Perfectly happy with abortion campaigners. In fact, that's in fact 73%. Yeah, not the campaigners actually, we've got it already, but the opposition to abortions, which I found quite interesting. And you couldn't make figures like that up in a rush. The findings come from a day after another poll showed that the majority of British Catholics fear that child abuse scandal has permanently damaged the Church's reputation, but their support for the Pope remains strong. That's nice, isn't it? Another interesting bit, which I have to tell you, which is quoting from the Telegraph newspaper, is a guy called Mr. Valero. Mr. Valero, obviously one of the spokesmen, he's a spokesman for Opus Dei in Britain. He says, in a briefing to the Vatican Press Corps in Rome, Mr. Valero acknowledged that Britain was now a deeply secular country. Oh dear. With the recent poll showing that a majority of residents were indifferent to the first ever state visit by the pontiff, which is actually true. And then he goes on to say nobody knows anything about religion in the UK. How wrong he could be. In fact, most people don't want to know much about religion in the UK, and that's based on the fact that we've had an awful lot of religion in the UK in the past, and it didn't really work out that well. In those days when religious people were in charge, it was known as the Dark Ages. Anyway, it's interesting, isn't it? No doubt this story is going to unfold. I cannot wait to find out what the old Cardinal Ratslinger, what he has to say, actually. On top of all this, there's a completely new scandal started up, which I shall tell you about in a second. Yeah, following the resignation of one of the top Belgian bishops in April because he was a paedophile, another paedophile, following that, they've had nearly 500 people come forward with sexual allegations against the clergy in Belgium. Now, even if you take a few of them off as like nut jobs, it's still an awful lot. And once again, the Pope has to defend this. What he really wanted to do to come to Britain and do, well, what he really wanted to come to Britain and do, apparently, was to try and fight secular Britain, to tell us how wrong we are and fight the evil of secularism. And when the Pope says secularism, he usually means atheism. So what he really wanted to do is come and have a go at me. But I've got the feeling I won't need to have a go at him because everybody else is doing it for me. So I can't wait just to find out what he makes so many mistakes, doesn't he? And what mistakes he'll make this time. I have the feeling he'll make a few. And I'll be there ready to point them out, hopefully, if someone else hasn't already done it better, which they probably will. Anyway, peace for now. Let's see how this thing goes. It's like really a preliminary thing to something exciting that might just happen. Pope's visit to Britain. Who'd have thought it? Peace.